I don't know
Okay.
what. So we are here on our 14th podcast with my co-host, Jocelyn Sokol. And today we're interviewing an incredible guy. Brendon Corcoran is a captain, one of three captains of the Ridgewood Fire Department. But he's a little bit more than just a captain of the Ridgewood Fire Department. He is an incredible leader, incredible role model for all. Just happens to be ranked 20th in the world in his age group for half marathon triathlon and 6th nationally. I mean, incredible. I've known Brendon since he's been 1 day old. We are old, great friends. He has also been part of the Guinness Book of World Records. And he's an incredible dad, father of 2 beautiful children. And Brendon, we're so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hi, Brendon. Hi. So what has it been like for you working at the fire department during this time?
It's definitely been a transition. This is probably my 3rd pandemic since I've been there. With we had swine flu, Ebola, and now this, which is obviously been taken to a new level. But yeah, it's changed our responses, our protocols. You know, how we gear up our protective equipment. You know, there's been a lot of changes. You know, how we interact with each other. You know, we have to wear masks often in the firehouse when we tend to congregate, and we can't really drill like we used to because that's always in groups. Yeah, so there's been a lot of changes, and obviously the responses have changed as well. With as many COVID patients as we've had in the village, we've had many responses to treat and transport those patients. So a lot has changed in the last couple months.
So as a frontline responder, we're told to stay at home, socially distance ourselves so that we don't potentially get this disease, this flu. You're out there risking your life, theoretically, right? I mean, you've got a family and you don't have the luxury of staying home. Is there any part of that? I know you're drilled well on handling, and you've been in these situations, putting your life on the line. Bren, how have you felt during this experience?
Yeah, personally, how I interact with, people with calls and things, I had more precautions, but there has been a lot of fear personally for me. You take the precautions that you can, and even if you do get it, you hope that, being younger and healthier, you have a shot. But you also, I do worry about bringing it home or bringing it to somebody else. Like you said, I'm working with, 11 to 12 people every day, sometimes more if the administration's there, and you take precautions, but you don't want to carry things into the home. So that's a concern. I come in the house, I go right to the basement, take all the clothes off, throw them in the wash my hands, do things like that. But yeah, I mean, we've dealt with, plenty of, pandemics and other things that are obviously risky in our career. So, personally, there was a lot of fear, just smart precautions we took, and, you just try and treat it with the respect it deserves. But there is more the concern for, you transmitting, if you do catch it, to family or community, especially if you're asymptomatic and you don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you said that you have had a lot of COVID-related calls. What are some of the hardest things you've seen?
Well, luckily, as a captain now, I don't respond to a lot of the medical calls. It's the engine goes, and the EMT is on the engine, so they have the patient contact. I responded to some of the earlier calls to make sure that protocols are being followed, and checking out the precautions that we're taking. Are they working? Are other departments and facilities using the same precautions? So they're not risking infecting us. But at the same time, I'm the one who goes into homes for fire calls and any other situation. So even if they're not called, being called there medically, we have to take the same kind of precautions, because you don't know if you're being exposed just by being in a regular home and somebody doesn't really have it, or that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. So one of the things that intrigues Jocelyn and I the most is the mental game, the psychology of dealing with challenges and how different people respond. So it's one thing to be a coach and talk to players about running onto a football field in a difficult situation or stepping up to the plate with the bases loaded. But you have to step into homes, buildings. I know you were part of the fire uptown, and you have to go in there. How do you get yourself into the correct calming mindset without losing your focus to handle these really life-challenging situations?
Yeah, it's probably different for everybody, but one aspect is probably, people wonder why we drill often on the same things over and over again. And that's so it just becomes, becomes mechanical. It's things you don't have to think about. So at least those skill sets are just baked in. So you kind of have going through those motions, you're not trying to think about what you're doing and the stress of the call itself. Some things are happening automatically while you're trying to make assessments of the situation, because you can do there's the mechanical operation, but then the situation you're going to is very dynamic. It's not the same, and you can't fully prepare for it, especially if you don't live in a big city where you have a fire constantly. You're not getting as much practice in the real world situation. So we drill, and then you really have to, when you go in, kind of not get the tunnel vision and see the broad picture, because you could easily become fixated on just something that's right in front of you and not see around in front of you. But let's say this wall's collapsing, you have to keep that broad, wide open view, in order to get things done.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, and being part of the front lines, are you seeing COVID-19 situations lessen, and are you getting a feeling that things are getting any better, or how are you feeling?
I would say here, it seems like we've passed the peak. We still have it. It seems like the hospital's not quite as busy when they drop off. They're pretty jammed up. Probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, they were at capacity. So I would say it does seem to be dwindling down. It's still there, but I would say we probably are riding on the downhill now, would be my guess. But that's it's hard to say, because we only see a certain portion of it, and I think as people are becoming more educated on it too, sometimes it's almost better for. We've tried to encourage, if you have a family member that you've been living with for a couple of weeks and you're starting to feel these symptoms and need to go to the hospital, sometimes you're putting a lot less people at risk if you can transport them yourself. We try to put that out, try and encourage these things, because we're just trying to minimize the risk to the community as a whole, first responder, putting a strain on our PPE and equipment. But it does, in the broader question, from what we've seen, it's starting to slow down, I would think.
So Brent, Jocelyn and I, with our clients, our life coaching clients, do a lot of work with breathing. And as an elite athlete, I know you're well aware of your breath awareness is giant. You try to control it, and obviously you try to control it in these high stakes environments that you thrive in. So we talk a lot about nostril breathing and keeping your body in parasympathetic mode, keep you in a calm state. Tell us a little bit about your training and how much breath awareness you do, and how it carries in to your career and in these challenging situations.
Yeah, it's probably not one of my strengths, actually. It is something I'm aware of, and I do try and touch on it. And I actually do find if I try and establish a breathing pattern during really hard efforts, in terms of exercise, I can actually lower my heart rate probably 10 beats or more, which actually has a long-term implication, and especially in a long race, if you can save heartbeats and you're saving thermal stress, it plays a huge difference. So it is a big part of it. And I actually have a little breathing device I use now, which is it's called a PEEP device, which is trying to remember, expiratory pressure device. So when you breathe out, there's a little bit of resistance, which helps keep your lungs inflated. I don't know whether physiologically it works for sport. I know we use it in EMS. It's something they use to help patients breathe when they're having difficulty breathing from time to time. But it does help me control my breath. So I have a forced exhalation. So I'm having a much more consistent breathing pattern. And during really hard efforts, I find it helps me. I'm asthmatic, so I tend to, when I'm at really, really high intensity stuff, I tend to get really tight in the chest. And I don't think it's actually asthma. I think it's more just like a constriction, whether I'm not expanding the lungs or whether I'm breathing improperly. There's something to it. So I've been using that to try and control the breathing. And when we wear our air masks and we clip in, they call it a 30-minute bottle that we wear in our back. It's 30 minutes of room air that we compress into a bottle to breathe. But that can go in 3 minutes if you're sprinting and swinging an axe and doing, it depends on your exertion level, your fitness, and your breathing pattern. So there is a definite benefit if you can slow down your breathing, stay calm and relaxed, and just have a nice established breathing pattern, not hyperventilate. You're preserving the air on your back. One, so you can work longer, but two, also if you are in a bad situation, I mean, we're checking our air all the time, but if you need to get out and you've preserved your air, you're going to have a lot more time, to get out. So, I mean, there is a role. It's not strength. It's something I do work on, but it plays in both fields, in fitness and in firefighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were wondering, are you seeing a change in the amount of fires or the type of fires that are happening right now?
I think, generally not just Rigid per se, because we're a very small microcosm. We had a much bigger fire, which you could say wouldn't happen if the crisis wasn't happening. Probably because it started much, much earlier today as a very small fire. We don't know the cause per se, but let's just say it was electrical or, something similar. It's going to start real small. And somebody probably would have noticed that at 2 p.m. as they're working in the store, called us. We would have dealt with it, put it right out. It might have only just been something smoldering, but it sat for 10, 12 hours until it built into a really big fire. So, and you're seeing in surrounding towns, I think you are seeing a bit of an uptick in fires, from what I can tell. And obviously a big concern now is everybody's home. You used to think like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in a house fire on a Tuesday, there's probably nobody there. Now, everybody's there. And you've seen a lot of, there was one woman who was rescued at the fire downtown. They pulled her out of the 3rd floor on the ladder. And then I've seen in several other towns in recent fires, the updates, there have been several rescues. So I think, the fires have ticked up a little bit, it seems, and I've seen probably more rescues than you would typically see on a percentage basis, with the fact that people are home.
Well, I love your story, Brendon. The little piece you just added in before. I'm the sixth best runner in the whole United States for my age group, and I have asthma. So a lot of people that have asthma early on usually say, well, then I can't run. No, it's impossible for me to run. So you are the 6th best with asthma. I saw you in high school be critically injured through your shoulders and then come out of high school and flip this and then use your legs and become a runner, become a biker, and then find a way to swim. But it's incredible what you do. Yeah. But most important, you wanted to help people in your life. You really did. I've seen you, since you've been this big, and you got into this business of service via the fire department and just done an incredible job. So we're so proud of you. And we want to thank you for coming in today, and just a credit to all the frontline responders who are giving their lives every day. And every fire whistle that we hear, you know, you have to go there and risk your life. So thank you for doing that, Bren.
Yes.
Thank you for.
Well, thank you so much, Brendon.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys, we'll just click off.